Kinkela and Taylor Humphrey here with us. And Coach, if you want to just start off with any opening remarks you might have, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Year 2, first one again. We're very prepared to be here and very excited to be here. And I brought with me Alyssa, Kinkela, and Taylor Humphrey, who are 2 of our underclassmen athletes on the team. And I just want to say first and foremost a thank you to the Big Ten for hosting this event. It's obviously my 2nd year attending, and every year it just gets bigger and better. And it's really a wonderful opportunity for us to talk about the Rutgers program, but also to celebrate Big Ten volleyball in general, which clearly there's a lot of interest in, and the best of the best. So it's just really exciting to be here.
Questions in the room for Rutgers? All right, I'll start things off, Coach. Last year you had 8 newcomers that you were incorporating. What does that look like this year as you continue to try and take a step forward in the Big Ten?
We did 5 more. Actually 6 newcomers this year. 5 true freshmen transfer. So we are a team that has spent a lot of time in the off season developing the core that is returning from last season, building upon that experience and what we are setting as our non-negotiables, our team standards, and making sure that when anyone comes into this program, they're aware of them. And that allows for the transition into whenever we add new faces, which we'll do every year. And for every year in the program, we will add new people. So it's really important to make sure that those core values are established and set, and that the team is really aligned with what the vision is for not only this year, but the program moving forward over the next several years.
Daniel Gilman, 6 rotations. Coach, what was one thing that was an unexpected change or something that you went through here going into your 2nd off season that you didn't necessarily expect, whether it be with Rutgers or doing Big Ten volleyball, either media or inside the team?
Didn't expect. I think it's really important to recognize I had an idea of what was necessary from a training standpoint, and also from a mental side of the game, so to speak, right, of how to develop that, how to train that in the off season. But I think really being able to pivot to those ideas for a team that was maybe in their first spring, or maybe only in their 2nd spring, or even a true first spring, right, having the ability to train from start to finish, it did change kind of the way that I was approaching practices and how we were looking at personal development, not only on court, but also just in the mental space. So we spent a lot of time this spring talking. I think we spent a lot of time of making sure, probably more talking than I expected, but a lot of time talking and just making sure that relationships were really established. I'm a very relationship-driven coach, and for me, I recognized last season that if the relationship between coach and player is not strong, then it's hard to give honest feedback. And I look at them not as volleyball robots, but as people, and I need their feedback as well to me. So I think that was an unexpected piece of this spring, was really the conversations that occurred in order to create really dynamic relationships leading into the fall.
Lincoln Arneal, volleyballmag.com. Taylor, you participated in the U.S. Open tryout program too. What was that experience like for you, and what did it mean for you to represent Rutgers at that program?
Yeah, it was an honor to be selected by Coach to represent our team, and I just had a great experience. It was amazing being able to travel out to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs and just compete every day with some of the best of the best. You know, it wasn't uncommon if we were doing a passing drill to have an All-American next to me, and that was just really eye-opening and a really exciting opportunity to be able to see the level in the gym and try to bring that back to the Rutgers gym and just elevate our team, aggression and how we play. So it was a really amazing experience.
Yeah. This season was the first time we've ever sent anyone from the Rutgers program out to that tryout. And historically, we've been a very internationally based team. Obviously, Alyssa's from Australia. Say hello. And so we didn't always have the ability to send people just because they weren't able to participate, right? Because they were not, domestic players. But as our team has shifted into more of a domestic-based team with, support from our international student athletes, we now have, and we will year after year, have athletes who have the opportunity to attend the tryout. It's exciting.
Coach, you were talking about those conversations and really wanting to get to know them and being that sounding board. Tell me about what you have been working with Own It and collecting that kind of data and how important that is to kind of evaluating things around your program.
Yeah, and I'll let Alyssa speak to this one event after I kind of give a brief overview. But a few years ago, we started wearing collectible or Whoop bands, as you see other programs wearing, and or Aura rings or things like that can collect data. And you receive all this information, but what do you do with it? How do you process it? What good is it for the athlete other than saying like, oh, I worked really hard today, right? I didn't get enough sleep. Yes, we all do those things. But how do we create habits out of that? And my assistant, Robbie Belden, we call him the Whoop Master. He's really owns this. And we were approached by Own It to be a pilot program for their programming. And I think it's just a lot of, conversation and teaching our student athletes how to protect themselves from burnout, protect themselves from injury, that sort of thing. So Alyssa, I don't know if you have anything to add to that experience, but.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's just technology like that just helps us benefit our bodies and help us create our bodies, or prepare our bodies for games. And after long travel days or long games that have been tough, it's important to review that data and what our stress has been like in order to better prepare ourselves for the next day. So just technology like that has really benefited us, especially from the first year to now, and it will just continue to help us.
This one's for Taylor and then Alyssa. You mentioned kind of a little bit of an awe factor of playing next to All-Americans. Throughout the season, do you watch other Big Ten matches? And if so, how do you kind of separate getting into the moment and not maybe finding yourself in awe of some of the players on the other side, instead just kind of playing your own match?
You start?
Yeah, for sure. Before coming to college, I used to watch Big Ten on my Instagram, not knowing that I'd be ending up here where I am today. So I think there's also a line between analyzing the teams and watching Big Ten teams and not comparing yourself to them. So I watch them, I analyze them, I want to pick up certain things that might benefit my game, might help my game, but I'm not going to start to compare myself, because then that'll just lead to a downward spiral, and that's just not a good thing. So I analyze, but I don't compare, because I want to improve myself and my game.
And for me, I grew up in Michigan, so Big Ten country. I've grown up watching Big Ten volleyball. It's always been a dream of mine to be able to compete in this conference. But that being said, when we scout, when we watch film, we're watching their plays, we're reading their offense, reading their defense. And when it comes to game time, it's us versus them. There's not really any celebrity factor when it comes to who you're playing across the net.
And I think this is something that has actually changed. They weren't part of this program a few years ago, and I do remember before we played some of those bigger matches, my players would refer to people by their number, and there were certain matches where we were referring to people by their first names or their last names. And I remember saying, are we watching this as competitors or are we watching this as fans? And that's something that I even talked to Alyssa about on the sidelines sometimes, like her first year when she was injured and watching from the sideline, I was like, watch this as a competitor. It's not just because this is a nice game. We can always go back and rewatch games as a fan.
Caitlin, volleyball is able to add a third assistant coach. I was looking at the website. Didn't see it. Are you able to add one now? What was the discussions like, and what could the impact of that be on the sport?
He just started yesterday. Kim, we gotta add him up there. No, he was finishing up. He was Ryan Mather will be our third assistant. He played at Grand Canyon, and he was finishing up playing with a professional men's team this past weekend. So he wanted to complete that season, and then, yes, he's starting with the program as of August 1st. I think that he is a dynamic athlete. I think he brings a lot to the table. Obviously, I have two of our pin attackers here. That was his position, and that's an area. I was middle blocker. I can train all positions. I mean, all my staff were able to train all positions, but having a person that's truly dedicated to us scoring more points, that's what I was looking for in a third assistant, because as you look at our history from last year, defensively, we increased in a lot of categories. Offensively is where we need to go in order to be able to really get over that hump for where we want to be as a program. So I'm excited to add him to the staff.
What's the overall impact of being able to add a third full-time assistant to kind of help the work? I mean, yes, there's a volunteer coach, but to have a third full-time assistant, what impact does that have on the program?
It's huge. I mean, I have a lot on my plate as a head coach. I know that my assistants also do. Recruiting coordinator, we're out almost every weekend recruiting. You know, we're trying to form relationships with not only players on the team, but players that potentially will be on the team. And having just another person that's within the program that's able to really focus on training, really focus on video analysis, really focus on scouting the future opponent, it takes a lot off of my plate. So I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to have another person on staff. Another person to feed on the road, but it's another person.
Ethan Casales, Dignity Volleyball. For coaching the players, what does Abby Dietering bring to the coaching staff?
Yeah, Abby obviously has the experience of playing in the Big Ten. She played in the Final Four. She played for a historically successful program, and I think last year we used her as our model. We were a very, very young team. We were growing in leadership, and I think a lot of the questions were, how do I be a leader? What am I supposed to do? How do we hold each other accountable? And her having been there and done that in a way that was successful, I think was a wonderful model for this team. And she's an excellent recruiter. She has great relationships with a lot of the top clubs in the country. And she's really allowed me to grow in my confidence as a head coach by saying, you know, you're capable, you can do this. And it's hard to be a head coach at this level. It is. There's days where you feel really, really good about what you're doing, and there's days where you question a lot of things. And having someone that played at that high level who wanted to be part of my staff is really inspiring. And I'm very grateful for her to be a part of it. But obviously you guys coached by her. She's tough. No, she can be tough.
She brings a lot of energy all the time, which is great, and it's needed definitely on days when, you know, it's a little lighter in the gym. But from a leadership standpoint, I had the privilege of having many conversations with her just about how we want to go about, you know, bringing this program to another level. And she has amazing experience at Penn State, and it was fun to pick her brain and try to find, all right, what's Rutgers' system? How do we want to, you know, move forward as a program?
Absolutely. Just to add on to that, obviously we've got two amazing coaches, Caitlin and Robbie, but Abby is also recently just graduated, so she's still very active in our team. She's very competitive, so she does join in our games, so she adds that Penn State mentality and intensity to our game, which also helps boost our game and better understand volleyball as a game.
Bremen Kesey, Bucky's fifth quarter. You were talking about kind of, you know, building a different kind of culture and kind of building up sort of, you know, previously you might have been looking across the net and sort of, you know, knowing who they are, and now it's like kind of getting the competitive nature. With that kind of being said, what are the kind of expectations for this season to kind of keep growing the program and sort of the culture of the team and players for you? You know, talked about integrating a lot of different players and new faces. What is that like for you as a player to kind of uphold them to that culture?
Yeah. Do you want me to go first? Or you
Sure.
Want? Okay. You know, when I took this position, I had a very clear vision for the process that it was going to take in order to build this program into something that's sustainably successful. And I fortunately had the opportunity to do that with another institution, so I was comfortable in that process. And you know, we're headed into our fourth season, and I think we're right in line with where my expectations were. The major humps that I want to get over are we need to be above 500. That's something that is really, really important for this program. So obviously that's difficult to do in such a challenging conference. So looking at the non-conference slate, making sure that we're not only prepared to play against Big Ten opponents, but also, you know, going into the Big Ten season with a significant, you know, win-loss record is important. And I think that making sure that, again, we grow in our leadership potential, we grow in just on all the things that we've already experienced. But we talk about this a lot as a team. And I think in the past, we were seen as a victim. You know, oh, Rutgers volleyball is just something that, you know, is an easy win for a lot of programs. And I think that this first couple of years, it's hard to get over that. It's hard to get over that. And I truly believe that we are at the point now where, yeah, we might be the underdog, but we're no longer the victim. We are 100% going in with this gritty underdog mentality this year, and that's something that I see in our gym every single day. So sure, you can talk about competitiveness and you can talk about, but it is within them. This team all the players on this team bought into my vision, bought into the desire to be the first to put the banners on the wall, to be the first to really make a name for themselves, and no one's going to even think about what Rutgers volleyball was 10 years ago once they start seeing these girls out on the court.
I think it's one thing to see on court how far we've come, but behind the scenes, especially since I first started, it has improved dramatically behind the scenes. I think I view my team as a house or a building, so you need to build strong foundation or a structure in order to build a solid building or a house. So I feel like we, as Caitlin said, we have paved over a lot of bumps, a lot of issues that has enabled us to achieve the goals that we are now seeking to achieve. So there has been a lot of improvement behind the scenes, which will eventually translate into our game.
Yeah, and when newcomers come in, or freshmen or transfers, I think we're very quick to introduce them to the culture that we want, and we're very steadfast in knowing like what that culture is. So when we have a foundation of friendship, behind the scenes, it makes on-court tough conversations, asking a teammate to give more effort, holding each other accountable, things like that. It makes those a lot easier when off the court, you can have fun and it can be a good time, but on the court it's business and we're here to win games.
I'm not kidding, these girls hold me accountable too. I think we have a really great, I try to treat these players, like I said, they're not robots, they're human beings, and everyone on this team has a voice, whether they are just been there for 1 month or they've been there for 4 years. And it is a working relationship that allows them to grow as people, but it also allows our coaching staff and myself to grow as people. And I think that trust and that belief in one another is going to really, really bring great things on the court.
Kaley, you said the spring was kind of an experimental time figuring out what was going to work at setter, what kind of worked offense. Now that you've had time to reflect on that, is that going to carry over to the fall, figure out some more experimentation, or do you have a better idea of what you want to do offensively with your roster going into the season?
It's a loaded question. I think we have a lot of people who can play in a lot of positions. I do. I think we have a lot of options. In the past, historically, we might not have had as many options. There was a pretty clear person or persons that were going to play in specific positions. I think the competition in the gym is higher than ever before. I think that we have the ability to sub people in and out more than we ever had before. So I'm excited about all the potential. I mean, obviously as a coach, you have ideas of what offense you're most comfortable running. I've never run a 6-2 as a coach. I've only ever run a 5-1, but we have 3 setters on the roster this year. We have multiple really solid pins. We might be in a 6-2. I don't know, but that's what preseason's for. And unfortunately, we're not allowed to be in there in the summertime as head coaches, so a lot of it's just them saying, like, we look good. But until I'm in there, getting to really analyze what the team looks like. But I think this team, they are good volleyball players, right? They know how to do all the skills. It's what chemistry works best on this team is what's going to, in turn, make the lineup that is out there on a regular basis.
There's a lot of attention on June 15th as kind of a recruiting date. I mean, what does that look like for you, and what are your thoughts on that as a starting date for recruiting after a prospect's sophomore year in general?
I was in Naples this year on June 15th, so that was nice. It's a busy day. I think it's a lot of, June 15th is the start date, but there's a lot of work that leads into June 15th. So behind the scenes, you're making a ton of phone calls to recruiting coordinators, other people, just kind of figuring out where potential interest lies on an athlete, or what could be a good fit for your program. So you want to make sure that your list is not expansive. There's only a certain number of athletes in each recruiting class that can play at this level, and that's just the reality of the situation. And they're wanted by every top program within the country and every mid-major program. Everyone's going after these athletes. I can't even imagine. I think I talked to a defensive specialist this year on June 15th who had 92 phone calls on the first day, right? So I do think we need to keep thinking about this process. Is it best for the student athlete? Is it best for the coaching staff? How do we make sure that we are authentically creating relationships that allow for best decisions to be made and best practices? And the opportunity to have multiple official visits, I think that's huge, but there's a lot of pressure on recruits in order to get everything done, and camps and club and high school and all this stuff. And Alyssa went through a different process, but Taylor went through it, and it's tough. So the more that we can allow for visits in line with conversations, I think that's important.
Any more questions for the Scarlet Knights? All right, good. That's all the time we have anyway. So thank you guys very much. Good luck this season.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.